this is Keith. I'm here today to do a very quick and informal review of my action cams known as the ActiveOn CX editions. And I did say plural because I own both. I have the black edition and the gold edition of the ActiveOn CX. So today I'm going to compare the two because people are always asking me, hey, I want to buy an action cam. I don't know anything about them. I don't want to spend too much money, but I want to get a good one. So anyway, I'm going to review these two cameras, tell you what the differences are, what the similarities are, so you can decide yourself if you want to get them. And by the way, I live in Canada, Ontario, and the date is January 2017. So it's always kind of relevant to when and where you are as far as cameras go and prices and where you can get them. Okay, let's start off. First of all, I bought this camera in the spring of 2016, Shoppers Drug Mart. It was on sale for $99 and it came with an 8 gig SD card. So that was pretty cool. This camera I got last November at a Black Friday sale 2016 and it came at Best Buy for $150. It also came with an extra battery and an 8 SD card. So now the 8s are kind of small. A 16 is what you really need if you want to use the full camera life with the battery life and the SD card length, that kind of stuff. Anyway, first thing we got to compare is the actual body of the camera. This camera has a plastic case. If you noticed on the bottom here, I broke it. I broke it once. It broke in the tripod stand, and that's not good. And the plastic casing is cracking. So this camera is actually, I think, made from aluminum. So it's a lot stronger. It's tougher. It's a better camera. And of course, it costs more money. So that's one thing. Now, as far as operation goes, this camera can record at 1080p 30 frames a second. This camera records at 1080p 60 frames a second. So these action cams are made to record sports, get up close, and of course this has a better picture value at 60 frames a second, which you can slow down to slow motion if you really want to. Now, speaking of slow motion, this camera records at 720p 60 frames a second, and this camera, the gold edition, records at 720p 120 frames a second, making it very good to slow down for slow motion. If you're looking for cameras, that's the feature you want, the 120 frames. It's slow motion type stuff. This records pure slow motion, which means you can set it to slow motion. You don't have to convert it later. There's no sound, but it slows it down. So that's pretty cool. Okay, the next feature you want to know about is on the back. I don't have the cameras turned on, but both cameras have an LCD screen. Now, the black edition is just a screen. It's great. You can frame up your shots with it. But the gold edition comes with a touch screen. So you can touch the back of it to change the settings. On the black edition, you got to play with the buttons. But what I don't like actually about this gold edition is that you accidentally touch the back of this camera all the time and change the settings accidentally. So that's kind of a downside of having a touch screen on such a little camera. Of course, being action cams, they're small, they're tiny, they have to be close to the action. Unlike the bigger camcorders, they don't have a zoom lens on them. But wait, the black edition, yes, but this gold edition actually does have a zoom lens. You can touch the back screen while you're recording and it zooms in once, twice, 3 times, 4 times digital zoom on this. Now, digital zoom is kind of not really good. If you played with digital zoom, all it does is crop the sensor down and makes your picture look kind of grainy and distorted, but it does have a 4 times digital zoom. I never use it, but you can if you think that would be cool to get in a little closer. Oh yes, by the way, both of these cameras also take pictures. Most people think of them as video cameras, but they take pictures. Now, the black edition gets a 5 megapixel picture, which is kind of small, but the gold edition does 16 megapixels, which is fairly big. I don't consider them great still cameras. It's not really what I want them for, but they do take it. And of course, the gold edition has the higher resolution at 16 megapixels. Oh yes, just so you know, this camera, the Black Edition, records video into MOV files, .mov files, which suck because QuickTime used to use it. Nobody uses QuickTime anymore, so it's not really great for editing. That's what I find. This camera, of course, is different. It records in MP4 files, which is better. I have a better time with it. I like this better. So anyway, they're different. They do record different type of formats per camera. So I hope someday in the firmware updates they change that if it's possible, because I don't like MOV files. But MP4, really good with the Gold Edition. Okay, now it's time to talk about the similarities between both of these cameras. What do they have in common? Well, first of all, both of them have Wi-Fi. You can work Wi-Fi off these cameras with your phone or tablet. I've downloaded the app. It actually works really well. It controls all the functions, and people talk about latency or how long does it take to see something on your tablet when it happens in real life, and it's actually very quick, under a second. It looks like whatever you're seeing on your tablet is what's happening in front of the camera. So that part is great. Now, personally, I don't use Wi-Fi at all with these cameras. I don't know why someone would, because, well, you put your camera in one location and operate it from a different location. I don't know when you actually do that, unless you're spying on someone. But otherwise, I've always got these in my hands or on a tripod. But anyway, but it does have Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi works well on both cameras, just in case you were curious. Just so you know, the field of view of both of these cameras can be changed in the settings. So you can go from a narrow view, which is kind of what normal things look like, to medium, to wide, to extra wide. That's 170 degrees, I think. So it has the GoPro look if you want that, if you really want this really wide field, which a lot of people do with action cams. These cameras have multiple choices, so you can set that to what you want. One thing I should point out with these cameras is they get pretty good battery life. In fact, this camera came with 2 batteries, which is even better. I find in the summertime you get about 2 hours of recording time with both cameras. So if you're outside, you can let the camera just run for 2 hours if that's what you want to do. And it lasts pretty much all day if you're just doing little segments here and there. Now, the bad side, the downside I've found is right now, as I'm recording this, it's January here in Canada. It's below 0 in temperature. Both of these cameras get about 10 minutes of recording time on a battery charge. 10 minutes. And it's the fact it's just the cold. The cold weather affects these cameras to the point where they don't release power fast enough. The sensors assume that the camera is low on power and it shuts down. So you get about 10 minutes. But when you come in, you download your videos and then you notice the camera's back to full power again. It's not magical. It's just the cold doesn't help with these cameras. I guess they're small, they're tiny, the batteries are small, and the cold weather really affects them. So keep that in mind. If you're buying these cameras to record skiing or a pond hockey or something, you're not going to get much battery life out of them. Although I hear you can take those heat packs for your feet and hands, tape them on the back of the battery and the camera, and it'll keep them going longer. So keep that in mind. Oh, another thing that I find with these cameras, now the Gold Edition came with it. The Black Edition, I got this in a firmware update, and that is, DIS, Digital Image Stabilization. Now, I've tried it, and it works. I mean, it's not the greatest thing in the world because it's digital, but it does work. It makes a difference because I've tested it. I've walked down a hill holding the camera in my hand to see if it shakes or not. I actually did a review on it, and you can tell the difference. It does improve the video a little bit. So it makes it a little more smoother when you're walking as opposed to that shaky motion that you can't avoid. So both of these cameras at the present time with firmware updates have digital image stabilization built in. The last similarity I want to talk about with these two cameras is the fact that ActiveOn upgrades the firmware on a regular basis or when it needs to. So both of these cameras are now operating on firmware that I've updated, and it improves the features. So it's good to know that when you buy the camera, you're not just stuck with how it operates right now. The firmware upgrades and updates really improve the functionality, which is really cool. So you can count on that happening. So hopefully with this one, they improve it, somehow change it to MP4 files for the video instead of this MOV file, which is hard to edit and use and stuff. Anyway, that's really cool about these cameras. in conclusion, I just want to say I'm very happy I own both of these action cams. The Gold Edition, of course, is better. It has the better functions and features. I use it every day, but this becomes the backup camera. Anytime you want to go out on a bicycle or something and you want two angles, then hey, I got two cameras to work with, which is really cool. So, you know, depending on where you are, they come at different prices at different times and stuff, but I definitely go with these. They're a good version of an action cam. They get good quality video, really cool stuff, and of course, they're much cheaper than a GoPro. I can buy 4 of these for the price of the new GoPro. Anyway, that's my conclusion. I hope you like the ActiveOn cameras, and I'll do more in the future. This is Keith here in Mississauga. Bye for now.